In today's video, I am tackling one of my favorite questions, and that is your photography website built to convert? Is your photography website really making sure that your ideal clients that you would absolutely love to work with are getting from your homepage, getting the information that they need, and then contacting you and super excited to reach out to you, super excited to hear back from you, like half set on you being their wedding photographer or a portrait photographer or a brand photographer, even before they actually get on the call. So I'm going to be going through a couple of tips to make sure that your website is really giving them that full feeling and giving them all of the information they need to feel really excited to reach out and to potentially work with you. So today's tips are not going to really be specifically about your portfolio, which your portfolio on your website should be super dialed in as we know it. We are visual people as photographers. That is the basis of, why somebody might want to work with you is the type of work that you do, the aesthetic, the style, the venues, the area that you shoot in. That is all kind of like a given. I'm going to be talking about specific UI UX tweaks, psychology, things that you want to make sure are like embedded and infused in your website to make sure that it's actually converting. And so what is a conversion? A conversion is just that we want people to actually get to the contact form, fill it out, and reach out to you. So that counts as like a check mark for the website conversion. Obviously, there's going to be other points of conversion from when they actually inquire with you to actually fully booking and filling out the proposal and everything like that. But for the sake of today's video, I'm going to focus just on your website. So I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 different tips that I'm going to go through really quickly. So the first one is to use a really clear and concise navigation. Your navigation bar should be super simple, the words should be really direct and make a lot of sense. And so this is not the place to get really crafty with your copy or your words. I want your about section or like meet Manali to be very, very clear about what that page is actually taking you to. So a lot of times I see people will do journal for their blog. Like that's not the place to do that because we don't confuse people. We want them to be able to get exactly where they need to go at every single part of the process. And also make sure that your navigation isn't like super cluttered. Try to really make it sure that it's, especially the top navigation, I would say no more than like 5 to 6 different links that people can click on. If you have more built into your brand and you need people to get to different specific locations and specific pages, your footer navigation can be a really big place to have multiple links, but we want to keep top navigation bar really, really clear and simple. And we want to make sure that your contact button is in your contact page stands out because obviously we want to draw people's eyes to that and make sure that it's very clear for them exactly where they need to click to actually reach out to you. Website audits, which I do custom audits, you can actually find the link down below. But the one thing that I will tell people in pretty much every single audit that I do is to make sure that you know exactly what the goal of every single website page is and exactly where you want to take people from one page, like what is the next page that you want them to click to, and are all of your call to action buttons really clearly taking them to that next step in the process. So another thing is that you want to have call to actions way more throughout the page than you probably think you need to. A really good rule of thumb is to make sure that every like 1 to 2 scrolls, there's a button to take them to the next step in the process if they feel ready to do that. Also, I recommend phrasing your like calls to actions in a way that's really catchy for your people or like is really helping them feel like, oh yeah, I am thinking this. So for example, instead of learn more, maybe you phrase that as I want more details. Or instead of let's chat, yes, I'm ready to reach out. So do you see how that's phrasing it kind of almost in first person and through the eyes of like them reading that and they're in their head, they're going like, oh yeah, I do. It's like helping them get little mini yeses along the way. And the psychology principle is that you want to get people to say yes in their head 7 times before they say yes to you. And so I love to use that little trick with the call to actions. The third tip is to make sure that your copy is very client-centric. So I see this trip people up a lot in the about page because people will go on and on about like their qualifications as a wedding photographer or their journey with starting wedding photography and photography in general. And like, I picked up a camera when I was a toddler, which is all cute and very great and like great social content. But your about page should be speaking specifically to why does this matter to your actual ideal client, because they're not really a photographer themselves, so they're not really going to connect with that type of copy because they're like, oh, I see this about her, but there's nothing in me that really relates to that. Versus if you talk about how you have a really good eye for details and how you leverage that and how you have like the best detail photos, or there was never a moment that you ever missed during a wedding day, that's gonna stick in your ideal client's mind a little bit more because they're like, oh, I see how that part about her is actually really useful and helpful to me in the whole process of things. So hopefully that's a good example of how to like tweak that copy, make sure that every single word on your website is really something that your ideal client can really connect with, can kind of see themselves in and see how that is of value to them. Because as they're going through your website, in the back of their mind, the question that you always want to answer for your clients is, what's in it for me? Like that's kind of what people are thinking in the back of their mind as they're reading everything and deciding whether or not to reach out. Okay, so the fourth tip is to highlight your best type of work. So I said I wasn't going to dive super deep into this, and I'm not, but I couldn't not put this in here specifically because as wedding photographers, we want to really showcase what you want to shoot. So that doesn't mean that you have to show everything that you've ever shot before. Like you really want to curate this portfolio to speak really directly to the type of person that you want to work with. So this could include like, do you love working with detail-oriented brides? Make sure that there's a lot of those really custom details in your portfolio. Do you want to work with a really timeless and classic bride? Maybe that means that in your portfolio and in your website, you're going to have a good chunk of black and white, really iconic imagery. If you're somebody who wants to photograph at your local vineyards, that was me. I was a wedding photographer in Virginia. I wanted to make sure that it was showcasing a lot of photos of couples in the vineyards taking portraits or alfresco dinners or just at the local like vineyards that were, very key and would be like, oh, I'm getting married at a similar place to that as like something that pops up in my ideal client's mind. So that's another thing when you're showcasing your imagery, make sure that the venues and the location is speaking specifically to the area that you're in or the type of area that you want to be shooting in. Okay, this is another one that I get really nerdy over, and I pretty much include in almost every single website audit. So that is to make sure that with your testimonials that are on your website page, which they absolutely should be on your website page, like put those bad boys on your homepage, put them on the services page, put them in the about page. But when you go to add the testimonials, make sure that you also have a photo of the actual person who shared that testimonial because trust is built through the eyes. So if people can not only just read what one of your past clients has said, but they can actually see the person who said that, these like wonderful words about you and your work, because that'll help it really land in your ideal client's mind. And again, that trust factor is built through the eyes. So again, make sure that with any of the pictures of you, like have a couple photos of you where you're looking directly in the camera and smiling so that people can see what you look like, see who you are behind the brand, behind the business, and really connect with you in that way so that they know who to expect when they show up to a Zoom call to chat with you. Okay, this is not everyone's favorite tip, but make sure that your website is mobile friendly. I see all of the time that we have really gorgeous photos, but like they are super slow to load on a mobile website, or the desktop design is super pretty, but then people try to cram all of that on the mobile version and it's just kind of hard to navigate through and super clunky, or a page is super long, or there's like text that overlaps. Bane of my existence. It happens to all of us, but make sure that when you're designing your website, make sure that you're opting for a platform that makes mobile design super easy and keeps it top of mind. So I personally use Showit. I have a link for it down below in the description, but it is so easy because it'll take your desktop design and kind of like condense it and make it pretty palatable for mobile, which you can then go in and update it too. So if you want some elements to show up on desktop but not on mobile, you actually have the power and control to do that, which is huge. That was something that I was really struggling with my previous website designer. And so I absolutely love Showit because it makes it super simple. And it now allows you to do things like have certain text be like bigger on desktop, but smaller on mobile. And so having that level of control and making sure that your mobile website is friendly is so key because we're all out here, we're on our phones all the time. And so it's very feasible that a lot of your clients are at least first coming to your website on their phone, and then maybe they then take the time to go and look at it on the desktop version. But you don't want to lose people because the site isn't functioning very well on mobile. And that's going to dock you points in Google and SEO as well. So make sure that your website is designed to be mobile friendly. Please, please, please. And then the last thing is to make sure that your contact form is really easy to fill out, is really easy to get to, and is very clear and concise, and isn't asking for information that maybe at that stage your clients don't necessarily need to give over and hand out. This is a personal hot take, and I think that this is just informed from me being on the consumer end of filling out a contact form, but I don't want to just give out my phone number to somebody who I actually haven't met in person before. And so sometimes that not being optional is a hard no for me, which I know some photographers out there like to have the first point of contact being calling someone, but be really careful of what you require as something that they absolutely must fill out versus something that's optional. And also, I think that your contact form can be a really great place to price qualify your people. So in case people haven't seen your average cost or investment of your collections on your services page, I think your contact form is another really great point to make sure that that is very clearly outlined, because it's going to save you time, because you don't want to hop on a call with somebody who is you're so very clearly out of their budget. And same thing goes for them. They're busy, they've got a whole wedding to plan. So if they can avoid getting on a phone call where they realize halfway through, as much as they love you, it's just not going to work. I think having that price point reiterated in the contact form is a great way to make sure that you're saving both parties a lot of time. Another thing is make sure that you do ask them for things like their wedding date, things like their wedding venue, really key information that you need to be able to respond to them in one concise email instead of having to email them back and be like, hey, actually, what's your wedding date? I need to check with my calendar. So make sure things like that are included in the actual contact form. I don't know that people have to spill their whole life story to you in the contact form. For me, I'm oh, that's something that I would love to chat about one-on-one in person, but maybe something along the lines of what are you looking for out of your wedding day photography can again be a really good filter to be is this a good potential client to work with? And for them, that's going to help them kind of clarify oh yeah, what is it that is most important to us in the whole wedding photography experience, because that for them is going to be really important information for them to then filter who they want to work with, right? Depending on the photographer's philosophies and stuff that they're reaching out to. So I feel the contact form is very underrated, and when done correctly, having a really stellar contact form can be such a great addition and filter point and help to save so much time on both parties' ends. Also, another thing is make sure that you include your email address on your contact form page and include an expected response time. I think that that's always helpful to communicate proactively. And in case there's someone a wedding vendor who's trying to reach out to you but doesn't want to necessarily fill out your contact form because they're not a couple looking for wedding photography, that email address is still there and is still easily accessible. So I have so much to say about contact forms. But if you are looking at your website and you're oh, these are such great tweaks that I didn't think about, or oh, I know exactly what I want to go and tweak, or you're I feel I have all of these, but my website is still not converting, or you're I just want somebody else's eyes and ears on this because I'm so close to it and I know everything, but I can't put myself in my client's shoes to be what's missing or what could be added, or is there too much information? Is there too much text? Is the portfolio speaking to the type of person that I'm looking for? All of those questions, I would love to answer those for you. I do custom website audits, and you can find the link down below. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I drop videos just like this every single Monday for wedding photographers and creative entrepreneurs looking to grow their business. And I'm over on Instagram at Manali Santake. I will catch you guys in the next video.
Yes.